Hello. Well, welcome everyone. We are here today to talk about HubSpot versus Salesforce for scalable growth. And we have two great experts from HubSpot who will be sharing some insights today. But before they do their intros, I will introduce myself. My name is Sandy Moore. I am a Senior Director of Account Strategy here at SmartBug Media. And really excited for today's topic and want to send it over to Sarah and Ben, who are joining us from HubSpot today to do their intros as well.
Hey, yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Ben here from HubSpot. I am a product marketer working on all things competitive positioning. So how does HubSpot stack up to all the different CRM solutions out there in the market? I've been here for 2.5 years, based in Dallas, Texas. I play the saxophone. That's a little fun fact. And I used to work at MailChimp. So I've been around the block. But yeah, I'll pass over to Sarah.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Affleck. I have been in tech just over 10 years. I worked at a startup, I've worked at Twilio, and I've even worked at Salesforce for several years. So this conversation is really relevant to that background. And, I think that really we're going to bust a lot of myths on where we stack up against some of our other competitors. So let's jump right in.
Yeah. And hopefully you guys, the audience today, can connect with us on LinkedIn as well as we continue the conversation even after today's webinar. Okay, so let's talk about the agenda today. What are we going to be discussing? We are going to be doing some myth busting of some typical product misconceptions. We are also going to be talking about the top 3 migration concerns if you're going from Salesforce to HubSpot, and then AI in the marketing stacks for both Salesforce and HubSpot. So why essentially are we here today? So for most companies, especially those who have built their sales engine on Salesforce CRM, picking Marketing Cloud just feels like the default next step. It's the no brand. It's usually the presumably safe option, but we want to talk about the power of shifting that default mindset and what is the right intentional choice. And what it comes down to is one question: what platform will best empower our teams and actually drive the growth that we're looking for? So, Sarah, when a leadership team decides to challenge the default assumption, what is that first big aha moment that they usually have when they see how HubSpot can work with their existing Salesforce CRM?
Yeah, so keep in mind, I can probably argue us either way after selling Salesforce and managing reps there for about 3 years. But I think what's funny about once competing against HubSpot and now competing against Salesforce, a lot of folks come to Salesforce because of that old mantra, like nobody ever got fired buying Salesforce, which does totally make sense, right? It's the name brand in the space. What most people don't know, though, is that HubSpot has been around for a very long time. We started back in 2004 and started building out our products on the marketing side of things. HubSpot is really the top brand in the space from a marketing standpoint. Now, what's often, we see as the misconception is that folks think of HubSpot as a place to start and Salesforce as a place to scale. And if you're just thinking, top of mind, I need to get started with marketing solution and you go straight to Salesforce, you might miss a lot of the recent major changes that we've made at HubSpot. And you might miss where we sit in the market as a brand leader. So I always recommend jump in, see the tool. And I really think that people typically choose it because it's the path of least resistance. Highly recommend actually taking away the brand and just looking at the platform itself. And that could really change the way you view your software. Don't just think Salesforce equals purchase. Think, what are these two platforms doing? What's the easiest for me to get started in? And what makes the most sense for my scaling business?
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. So what's interesting is that according to HubSpot's 2024 report, they actually saw that customers did see a 107% increase in inbound leads within just the first 6 months. And then for sales and rev up folks here who are joining us today, this is huge. 76% of sales professionals report an increased win rate after adopting HubSpot. So this really shows the impact that it can have across the entire funnel. It's not just, about more leads for marketing. It's really about winning more sales. So let's dive in a little bit further and talk about launching campaigns. So, we've seen the results, but let's talk about how do we get there. One of the biggest operational hurdles that we see hamstringing marketing teams is the lack of speed. In a market that moves really fast, having to submit a ticket and waiting 2 weeks for a new campaign to be built is just really not an option for most of us. Agility is the name of the game. And, your platform should be that accelerator, not the roadblock. So, Ben, this is such a critical point. Can you talk to us about, from a platform perspective, what is it about HubSpot that's designed to help marketers go live quickly and really stay agile?
Yeah, this is a really big theme we hear a lot from customers. And Salesforce Marketing Cloud, they have multiple flagship products. They have 3 now. So they have the Marketing Cloud Engagement, which was formerly Exact Target. They have Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, which was formerly Pardot. And they have their new product built on Core Platform. These products are pretty powerful. They've been around for a long time, very customizable. But I think the trade-off is often kind of this here, which is the speed to campaign. So creating different assets, localizing them, tailoring them for different channels and audiences and things like that. And so that's why we see a lot of customers switch to HubSpot, and a lot of customers are kind of blown away at how easy it is if they've been used to working in Salesforce for so long. To do things like create segments, personalize your content, get a unified customer picture across marketing, sales, and service. And then we've just launched a bunch of new stuff at Inbound. If you missed it last week, we were at Inbound launching 200 plus different product updates. So we've got a new segmentation center in HubSpot. We've got a new marketing studio where you can collaborate with people in a marketing planning space to plan out your campaigns, generate assets, and repurpose content across channels with AI. And then we're investing in more emerging channels as well, too. So Salesforce is great for a lot of those traditional channels, but HubSpot is really thinking forward with a lot of the new emerging channels like podcasts and video and AEO tools that we've built into the platform as well. So yeah, long story short, I think Salesforce is really powerful, but HubSpot really wins on that speed to campaign and emerging channels as well.
Yeah, yeah. And someone who's worked in both platforms, that's certainly true. And not having to rely on a Salesforce admin to help with that process is a big plus. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the integration assumption. So this next point is really a huge one, I think, and something that any RevOps role knows all too well, especially if you've worked in a RevOps role, is that when you buy 2 platforms from the same company, the assumption is that they're going to work together seamlessly. But a lot of us know and have learned the hard way that that is not always the reality. And you can still have a clunky or disconnected integration. And that leads to friction between both teams. So Sarah, you've probably seen this in the real world and how it impacts clients every day. Can you shed some light on this integration assumption and what teams can often discover when trying to connect different platforms, even if they're from the same vendor?
This is my favorite conversation. Like, I could talk about this all day long. So when you think about the initial integration piece, when I used to sell Salesforce, what I thought was really interesting is you purchase Salesforce Sales Cloud if you're a sales user, and then you purchase like a Pardot or a Marketing Cloud. But those are tools that were built by different companies, and they grew up internally as different tools. And so the cool thing about working for something like Salesforce is you can integrate them. However, it often takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. You need a partner to both set them up and integrate them. The difference with HubSpot is that every one of our tools was built by us in-house. So all of our solutions, there's no integration between them that ever needs to happen. All you have to do is activate them and they're ready to go. So when I think about like total cost of ownership, this is huge. Most people, when they want to compare like HubSpot to Salesforce, they're looking at like a Sales Hub license and a Sales Cloud license. But what they're not looking at is behind the scenes, that integration cost. Are you having to integrate all of these different tools within something like Salesforce, which is going to take you a lot more time to get in and start seeing value? And it's going to cost you a lot more money because you need to pay somebody to do that integration. Think of it as like a house. This is one of my favorite analogies. Anybody who knows me knows that I use this all the time. But when you think about moving into HubSpot, right? At HubSpot, we are selling you a plot of land. Salesforce is selling you a plot of land. But with HubSpot, we're selling you a plot of land with a preset house ready to go. It is built. It's move-in ready. We've got furniture. All you need to do is decide the color of your walls and maybe where you arrange the furniture. So if you were to hire somebody to come in and maybe move things around and paint the walls, it's going to be a lot less expensive than if you were to choose something like a Salesforce, an incredibly robust tool. And if you want to build that house from scratch, be my guest. But what we found is that buying that empty plot of land and having to go in and then purchase every single piece separately and go to all these different partners and pay them to integrate all of your tools, it does a couple of things. One, it takes longer to buy a move-in ready house versus to buy a house that you have to build from scratch. And it always takes longer than you think. And it always, kind of like we know with like a kitchen reno, is more expensive than we plan for. So those are kind of the two differences as you're thinking about the two is, do you have to pay to set them up? How long is that going to take? And then is there an internal integration that needs to happen by tools sold from the same company? That might cost you that hidden fee that you'd like to spend elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think that sums it up really perfectly on the differences there. So that being said, let's get into some fun myth busting. So product misconceptions. Let's start with our first myth for today. Okay, that HubSpot is only for startups and SMBs. The reality is that HubSpot has evolved tremendously and now powers enterprise adoption at scale for some of the world's fastest growing companies. So, Sarah, you've specialized in the enterprise space. What are some of the one or two key HubSpot features that you consistently see enterprise clients use that previously thought that this was maybe a tool for a smaller business?
Yeah. So one of the things that's been really fun, I've actually been selling HubSpot for the past 2 years on the enterprise side. And I just a couple months ago moved into a management role where I'm training every single new rep, who comes into enterprise. And so we've been talking with a ton of different customers. And what most folks don't realize with HubSpot is we've got custom objects. We've got that sandbox environment. We've got the ability to have incredibly robust reporting with multi-touch revenue attribution and these dashboards that are both complex, but also simple, or I guess maybe robust, but also simple. It's kind of like, I think of the Google analogy. Google has really mastered it, right? It's a search engine and it's one line where you just type in and search. One word Google and a line of search. But it's so robust behind the scenes. That's HubSpot. Like you get it. It makes sense. It's all so intuitive. So I think that that's just been massive. I think about if there's ever a time where you're thinking, can HubSpot really scale? Come on over. Let's have a conversation. Let's look at what you really need to do. And then we'll get into the weeds. I have yet to come up against Salesforce and not be able to meet them from a technical standpoint. So it's usually just like you got to look under the hood.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good segue into our second myth here is that Salesforce can scale, but HubSpot can't. Ben, I would love your opinion on this. Can you help explain, what this means and, how can you help a team, of developers understand the difference between how Salesforce scales and HubSpot scales?
Yeah, this is a common refrain we hear. I think Sarah was mentioning it earlier. Like, Salesforce is a name no one gets fired for buying, and it's the name everybody associates with enterprise. They serve a lot of enterprise Fortune 500 companies. So they definitely can scale. And I think HubSpot maybe gets stuck in the past a little bit where we started serving SMBs and then we've really grown up market. And so I think some people still think that HubSpot is not an enterprise platform. And I would just like to dispel everyone of that myth. We definitely have enterprise grade features. Companies like DoorDash, Reddit, Spotify all use HubSpot. We run on HubSpot. At HubSpot, we're an 8,000 plus person company. We use our marketing hub, our sales hub, our service hub for all of our operations. Our website, HubSpot.com, is on HubSpot. So I think it's definitely available for scale. And then if we think about Marketing Hub specifically, Sarah talked about some of the great updates like platform level scalability, enterprise grade security, sandboxes, things like that, custom objects, you name it, customizations, UI customization. For marketing, we've also got a lot of features to help you scale. You can custom code your email templates. You can custom code your landing page templates. You can use programmable email. We've upgraded our sending speeds over the past year. So if you need help sending a huge volume of emails, we've got you covered there as well. Dedicated IP if you need things like that. So I think, yeah, there's a lot here that HubSpot can do that I think, again, check under the hood, like what specific features do you need? And it's likely that HubSpot has added that over the past couple of years. And then the last thing I'll add is if you take the reverse, position, look at what Salesforce is doing. I think specifically with regard to Marketing Cloud, there's a lot interesting that's going on over there. So if you've heard about Marketing Cloud Next or this new Marketing Cloud on core platform for Salesforce, what the heck is that? They've got these two flagship marketing products that they bought. So they bought Exact Target, they bought Pardot, and they integrated them kind of what Sarah was talking about earlier with their core platform. That's one of the things we didn't do at HubSpot. We built our platform from the ground up. And if we do acquire companies, we rebuild them from the ground up. Now, they're pushing everyone to this new product that they've built on core platform for the first time ever, which is called just Marketing Cloud. That's a new product. They've just rolled it out to their existing Marketing Cloud plans. So their Marketing Cloud account engagement and their Marketing Cloud engagement plans. So they're giving you, when you buy Salesforce Marketing Cloud today, one of their flagship products, they're literally giving you 2 products for free because this new product is relatively young and hasn't been built out. It doesn't have all the enterprise grade features for scale. They're giving you the old product as well. So you have both of those things while they continue to build out the new product and get you to upgrade. So I think the TLDR there is even this new Salesforce Marketing Cloud product that they're pitching, that's not even really enterprise scale yet today. And that's why they're giving you these older products. So definitely look at what Salesforce is offering you. Demystify the Marketing Cloud language and really think about what you need to scale and then ask whether or not HubSpot or Salesforce has those features.
Okay, I gotta jump in there too on Ben mentioning custom coded emails. This is like my favorite thing because when I learned HubSpot, my manager described it as you would use custom code on the back end if you're a glutton for punishment. And that's just always kind of made me chuckle. And it's something that I would think about. Like, what I love about HubSpot is we serve the developer, the technical person, but we also serve the marketer, the salesperson, the non-technical person. And we've somehow managed to make them all be able to access the same type of tools in the way that like they would most prefer. So I love our email builder because if you're a developer and you want to custom code that email, have at it. If you are a marketer and drag and drop is the way to your heart, which it totally is mine, that's all you. So you can really find the way to use the tool based on how or the platform as a whole, based on your own style.
Yeah, that's a great segue into our next myth is that some people think that HubSpot is just a marketing add-on tool. And, that's not the reality at all. It's really a full unified, marketing suite. Us at HubSpot or us at SmartBug use it just like HubSpot, where we use all of the hubs and we use all of the features and really can use all of the robust tools to help us with our marketing campaigns as well. So Sarah, what is some of the strategic advantages for CMOs, VPs of marketing to truly have this unified suite, especially when you're comparing it to another, stack of tools?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways to think about it. So when you picture HubSpot and you think it's just a marketing add-on, I would change that talk track in your brain to say HubSpot, if it doesn't happen in HubSpot, it didn't happen. So as you're a CMO and you really want to make sure that you're tying all of those dollars back to like a clear ROI to the business, you need your sales team all in the same place as your marketing team. This is critical because I can't tell you how many CMOs I've talked to this year that have said, my budget has been slashed. I've had to lay off several heads and I'm supposed to make those back up with AI. And in theory, that sounds great, but the actuality is very challenging. So my recommendations to CMOs is like, if you're thinking, okay, I've got all these different solutions that I'm using, and I'm having to train a very small team on all of these different products across the board in marketing. And we've got an incredibly robust social media tool and an incredibly robust, reporting tool. And then another one is our CRM. I would take a look at consolidation. I would take a look at bringing everything under one roof and tying everything that you're doing back to those sales efforts so that you can take that ROI to your CEO and say, hey, we can't slash our budgets because actually every lead brought in this year was through our marketing campaign. I mean, maybe not. I'm in sales, but just to advocate for those marketers out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great way to look at it.
No, throw someone. I was gonna say, yeah, I think the only thing I would add is like the more you use HubSpot, the more magic there is for marketing. And I think, yeah, that's kind of one of the big benefits of HubSpot is like the marketing studio that I was talking about earlier, the ability to remix content easily across all your different channels. You can repurpose an email into a landing page, into a blog post, into a podcast, into a video, clip videos and things like that. And I think that that's kind of the one of the differentiators too of like having it all managed in HubSpot. Like, yes, you could do that in an AI powered tool, but a lot of times you're just getting the text and you're not actually getting the asset where you could just publish it and all the hosting and whatnot is managed with HubSpot. And then again, when you're using sales and whatnot, you're getting that revenue attribution back on the back end too. So I think, yeah, I'm totally HubSpot. And again, full funnel. I think a lot of the other marketing platforms out there do acquisition really well or do retention really well. HubSpot, you can kind of do both with. So, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about ROI because this next one is going to hit home for our CFOs. And that is that Salesforce is cheaper. So when you look at that sticker price, that could seem true, but the reality is there's usually a lot of hidden costs that can add up fast. So Ben, when we talk about these hidden costs, which ones are most significant? Which ones also surprise companies as we talk about the total cost of ownership for a platform?
Yeah, man, I think what I always think about total cost of ownership with Salesforce, because it is true, like sometimes people will want to switch to Salesforce or they'll be doing an evaluation between HubSpot and Salesforce and they may think on the initial contract value. Salesforce is giving us this huge discount. They love to do that. They know HubSpot is cheaper. And so they try to throw these huge, like 70% discounts on. And I'm like, wait, hold up a minute. Like really evaluate, like number one, what's going on here? Like if someone's giving you a 70+% discount, you should be skeptical, number one. But then number two, I think, is all these pieces that you don't see. And I think a lot of what Salesforce does as a business strategy is land and expand. There's a lot of credit-based, usage-based charges. And there's a lot of things that are included with HubSpot that are additional add-ons with Salesforce. They literally have, you can look this up online. There's a Salesforce add-ons PDF. It's like 66 plus pages of different add-ons that you need with Salesforce. And if you're out there looking for those things, some of the common things are like support is like a percentage fee. So if you want to get access to customer support, 30% plus of your net license fees. So that's going to balloon with your license fees as they go up over time. You've got training if you want to get access to Trailforce Academy. They have some stuff for free, but the more nice stuff is paid. You've got onboarding. And then if you want a CSM, you have to spend a ton of money with Salesforce. Again, they really service those Fortune 500 companies. So with HubSpot, you're getting a dedicated CSM at a lot lower revenue threshold. And then, a lot of the hidden costs with the individual products as well. Like, for example, with Marketing Cloud, the ability to sync to ad platforms, for example, that requires Data Cloud Ad Studio licenses now, which is 2,400 per audience that you want to segment. That's something that's included with HubSpot. So there's a ton of stuff. And I think, my TLDR is like, no one really switches from HubSpot to Salesforce to save money. That is not a reason people switch from one to the other. It's actually the opposite of that. So.
Like this conversation just makes me chuckle because when I worked at Salesforce, I remember always thinking, oh my gosh, we're so expensive. And so we would lead with, to Ben's point, these massive discounts. And then I came to HubSpot and I was shook when people started coming to us and saying, well, Salesforce is offering us a much cheaper price. Can you compete? And it's just like, it's still mind blowing to hear that stigma on the back end. So a couple things to call out. Now, Salesforce, like I said, it's an incredibly robust platform, right? Like it can do a lot of things. The difference is that with HubSpot, our goal is for you to have like full usability. And it's really just user adoption is usually very high with HubSpot. So we offer things like free support. Ben mentioned support free, FREE, free support throughout the lifetime of your contract. That's no percentage increase based on added products. It actually has a phone option. Who's ever called, the worst version of yourself comes up when you are frustrated and you say representative. Like the absolute angriest person you will ever encounter is me saying representative, right? But most software companies, they don't even offer a phone option. It's literally just email and chat. And so the fact that we have somebody you can talk to on the phone when you're irate, which let's hope you never are, but maybe you're like me, that's huge. The other is the dedicated customer success manager. That is massive. As somebody who's sold HubSpot the past 2.5 years, knowing that you can have somebody that is dedicated to making sure you get the most out of what you're already paying for is huge. When I talk to my HubSpot customers, I'm like, I'm here if you want to add something or upgrade something or explore one of our new elements of expansion, right? I position the CSM as this is your person that you can meet with monthly, quarterly. They're going to update you on what's new with HubSpot in your current package. You don't have to spend more money to work with them. Like they're not calling you just to say, like I am, just to say, hey, Ben, want to buy something new? So like that's huge. The other one, this saves folks thousands of dollars. If you're not tuning in, listen to this one. HubSpot offers free, unlimited view-only users. Has anybody ever had to pay for a license for a CEO who just logs in to look at dashboards? They never actually, not throwing shade to the CEOs out there, you might be cold calling left and right. But if you have a CEO who just needs visibility into your marketing campaigns, into your sales efforts, into your data, then all you got to do is set up a free view-only user because they're just looking. They're looking, not liking. Versus at other companies where I've had to sell licenses for maybe upwards of 30 VPs and C-suites who are never going to use the tool. They are just going to look at the data. So that's a huge one. And then the final is the add-ons piece. Ben touched on this lightly, but knowing that when you purchase Sales Hub, there are no add-ons. If you were to call me and say, Sarah, give me a demo of Sales Hub, there's not going to be like 20 SKUs on your quote. There's going to be one SKU and it's going to say Sales Hub. Sales Hub. And that's going to include everything. And it's not just including, a sales CRM license, but it's also including calendar functionality. Anybody ever used like a Chili Piper or a Calendly? Phenomenal tools, but we include that functionality in your Sales Hub license. Anybody ever used Outreach or SalesLoft? Phenomenal tools, but we include those in your Sales Hub license. So not only are there no add-ons, but we're also helping you consolidate vendors. So I can't say enough good things about how we're constantly throwing value your way without additional cost.
Yeah, that's so helpful, especially when you get hit or blindsided by a cost that you just weren't expecting, and then your whole budget is blown out of the water because of it. It's just so detrimental. Okay, well, let's move on to talk a little bit about the migration concerns that we've heard from individuals. So let's say you're trying to get that buy-in. Benjamin, we saw your question. We'll be able to get to that here a little bit later, but this might help as well. There may be individuals at your organization that, are just concerned because they have some fears. And some of those fears can be along the lines of the timeline or the data integrity or adoption, or people can be able to learn, HubSpot the way that they know, Salesforce. So let's get into the first one. Okay. Timeline concerns. Okay, so many people are going to think that this is just going to take too long to do this migration and it's just going to disrupt the business. Ben, hearing this and knowing that, this is a concern, and one big hesitation we hear all the time moving from Salesforce Marketing Cloud to HubSpot. What do you want to say about what timelines you've actually seen? A lot of people think it's going to take years.
Yeah, gosh, I cannot give this is the timeline because it really is going to vary based on your business and your unique needs. But I think if I were to compare and contrast between HubSpot and Salesforce, oftentimes it's like weeks to months for a HubSpot migration versus months to years for a Salesforce migration. And then I would say too that we have a pre-built migration import tool from Salesforce to import a lot of your data, just automatically import it from Salesforce to HubSpot. And then we also have a really robust Salesforce integration. So if you're not moving, most people are not waking up at 9 a.m. thinking, I'm ready to rip out my CRM platform. Let's do it today. Let's get started. Let's go. No. So you're probably going to move one product, and keep some products behind and maybe have a staggered migration, or you start with just Marketing Hub or something. And so the integration is really powerful for that too. It's really robust. We sync a lot of the different objects from Salesforce to HubSpot, including custom objects. We have a dedicated team managing that here at HubSpot, a specific product team for that integration. There's more than 10,000 customers who use our HubSpot to Salesforce integration. And then the last thing I was going to say is like some of our partners and whatnot will even say like HubSpot integrates with Salesforce better than Salesforce integrates with Salesforce. But like maybe if I could add one second last thing that I was going to say is the other thing I would say just in general about migration is a lot of time it's a good opportunity to take a beat and clean up your data strategy. So I think when you think about implementations and migrations taking a long time, a lot of time it's because things have turned into the wild, wild west in your CRM. You've got custom objects galore, you've got custom properties, you've got automations, no one knows what they do. That's what really takes time. It's not necessarily the actual importing of things or setting things up in HubSpot. That's actually pretty easy to do. The reality of what takes time is you sitting down and reevaluating your business processes, and thinking about what do we need, what do we not need, what's going to help us, operate better in the future, and that's a really good investment in your business. So I think regardless of the migration that you're doing, sitting down and having those conversations with any vendor and thinking about how to optimize your business process is going to be a time well worth spent for your business.
Yeah, no, that's a great segue into the next concern that we hear from so many people is that they're worried that critical information or data could get lost during a migration. So Sarah, Ben, I don't know, who would prefer to answer this, but if leaders are worried that they are going to lose that critical history or information by moving platforms, how does the HubSpot migration protect that data integrity?
I know who
I'm
wants to
not
take. I can
exactly.
start with this one, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but jump in.
I can say, yeah. So we have a lot of things that port over, like I said, from Salesforce to HubSpot. And then if you're worried about like, we have this information that we really need to retain or whatnot, or this specific thing that we have custom set up in Salesforce isn't a pre-built thing to move over into HubSpot, that's the opportunity to work with a partner. And a lot of partners can help you migrate that data, whether you migrate it directly to HubSpot, whether you migrate it to a data storage solution. There are definitely options for figuring out what you need for your specific data needs. Customers come with us from a bunch of different industries with a bunch of different data requirements. So I don't want to like suggest one particular method. I would say our integration is really good. You can get a lot of stuff migrated over quickly. And then our partner community is really amazing. That was another thing I was going to highlight too, is like difference between Salesforce, HubSpot cost. HubSpot partners often work on the entire platform versus Salesforce partners often work on one specific product that they specialize on. So one, I think it gives you a better business consultant ad at HubSpot. They can advise you on your holistic business strategy working with a HubSpot partner. And then I think the other piece is that data quality, holistic reporting, and things like that. So they can get a better visibility into what your data needs are, how it should be set up in HubSpot, and how we're maintaining and storing that data over time.
And for everybody out there who has partner PTSD, which I totally did from other companies I've done implementations with, I've sold with partners in the past. At most companies, when you work with a third party integration partner or implementation partner of sorts, anybody can say, I'm one of those partners. I will set it up for you. At HubSpot, in contrast, we require partners to be certified and go through our approval process so that you can't just walk in. It's kind of like hiring a plumber. If I'm a general contractor and I recommend a plumber and I'm like, I hear Sandy crushes it on plumbing and she can do it for no money at all. Well, I don't know. I've seen water damage. It's pretty expensive. So I would pretty much only recommend a certified plumber if you're gonna, do the inner workings of your pipes at home. It's the same concept. So anybody who's concerned about bringing your data over, one, HubSpot is one of the most secure platforms in the space. We've got, type it in, it's called legal stuff on our site. And we've got a ton of details on the security behind our platform. And then two, know that whatever partner you're working with to do that migration from one platform to another is a certified HubSpot partner that understands how to bring things over correctly. And three, from a speed standpoint, there's a lot of fear. I think that it's because HubSpot is both robust but also simple. It's a lot easier to make sure nothing falls through the cracks with a system that's so clean.
Yeah. Yeah. And, from SmartBug's perspective, we think HubSpot does a great job with making sure that your partners are trained and certified with so many of the different programs that you guys offer with certain accreditations and, the HubSpot certified trainer program and all of those things. So I think that's a great segue now into adoption. So change can be tough for some teams. We know that all the time, and adapting or training on a new platform can certainly cause some concerns and challenges. So, with that being said, Sarah, how do you make it easier for teams to actually use, it on a day to day compared to maybe Salesforce?
Yeah, so this is funny to me because since I've come over from HubSpot, the biggest difference is that I have a lot of times the user driving the deal or the conversation versus the manager, the director, the VP, the C level. So when I was selling other platforms, it was often top down, where I had somebody come in and say, all right, our team is ready to go on this platform. We want to make a decision. That's what we're going to do. Everybody jump in and use it. And so sometimes when you're being told what to do by mom and dad, like, do we listen? I don't know. Versus if imagine your team, like I truly cannot do my job without HubSpot. Now that I've worked here, I can't work somewhere that doesn't have HubSpot. If I were to leave HubSpot tomorrow, which totally I'm not, but if I were and I were to go to a new sales team, the first thing I would ask is, do you use HubSpot? Because the difference is most folks, when they're working salespeople, you're working all day in your own little workspace on G Drive, you're sending emails, you're building quotes. And then at the end of the day, you have to go back and log it in your CRM. Same with marketing. You're working in all these different build platforms and then importing it into your marketing automation platform. With HubSpot, I'm not just doing my job all day. I can't do my job without the solution. All day long, marketers are building in HubSpot. They're pushing live. That's why the reporting is so accurate and good, because they're doing their job there. So they don't have to then go back at the end of the day and upload everything and log everything. So it's saving time, and it's just amusing to me how many entry level or user marketers and salespeople are the ones who come to us and they're like, hey, I'm talking to my entire VP of sales or my CMO, and I need to get them to understand why we as a business need to make this strategic shift. So that's just, I think, just knowing it's being driven by the users. And then the other one, I think it's because it's so easy to use that I've got a friend who works in marketing and she just lives in HubSpot. And she says to me all the time, it's never a tool I had to learn. I just opened it up and started using it. It just made sense to my brain. And so knowing that, it's just like, it gives me a lot of confidence selling it because I know somebody's going to be excited and it's going to actually work when they use it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with your friend more. I've been using HubSpot for over a decade, and at first, when you use any sort of new software, it can seem intimidating, but not HubSpot. I was able to jump in pretty quickly and be able to learn what I needed to do right away from my role. So let's talk about AI. This is a hot topic right now. Everyone is talking about AI. So why don't we talk a little bit more about comparing and contrasting what Salesforce has to offer and HubSpot? So, Ben, do you want to spend a couple minutes just talking a little bit about Agent Force versus HubSpot AI and benefits of both, value? Just kind of give us the lowdown.
Yeah, AI, it's everyone's favorite word. They've probably heard it a million times. I know we're all sick of it, but it's the future. It's not even the future, it's the present. It's the reality we're all living in now. But yes, Salesforce has Agentforce, very powerful, very cool tool. And then HubSpot has Breeze. That's our AI brand. Very powerful, very cool. I'll say some of the differences. I think when I actually did a session 2 years ago about like what are the differences between HubSpot and Salesforce AI, and what I said at the time and what I still think is true is AI is kind of an accelerant. It's a new technology, enabling technology for a lot of the differentiators that HubSpot you already know and love us for, or if you don't know and love us for, you will know and love us for. Which the first one is like HubSpot is all integrated. So we've been talking today, like we don't have to integrate our products. It's one customer record that's shared across marketing, sales, and service. And that integrated underlying customer data foundation really accelerates and increases the value that you're going to get from our AI. So we have Breeze. It used to be Breeze Copilot. Now it's Breeze Assistant built in. You can build custom Breeze Assistants. It has access to all of your customer information. So you can ask about whether customers have engaged with your sales team, engaged with your marketing materials, open tickets, and things like that, and just accelerates the value that you're getting. Number two, I would say is uh, HubSpot has always been known as like a marketing leader in the space. We have inbound marketing. We're reinventing that with loop marketing. If you haven't heard that, check that out online. But one of the things I like to say there is like a lot of new industry leading features with regards to marketing AI. So I talked about Marketing Studio, Content Remix. We've got a lot of new agents that we just released at Inbound to accelerate your marketing efforts there, as well as across the platform. One of the standouts is Data Agent. So it's kind of you if you know what Clay is, thinking about data enrichment to help you do prospecting, you can do that with Data Agent now inside of HubSpot. Very cool stuff. And then the last thing I'll say is HubSpot has a mentality of value first. So compared to other platforms, we really build value before we extract value. And a lot of the AI features in HubSpot are included. So Breeze Assistant, Breeze Copilot, all of those built-in AI, Gen AI features, those are going to be included in your core hubs, core product subscriptions. You don't need add-ons for those things. If you want to use AI for scaled purposes like automation and agents, that's credits. But with Salesforce, it's all additional. So if you want to get Gen AI features, you're going to need those Agentforce licenses, which are like $125 per user per month, which is more than a Sales Hub professional license at HubSpot. And then you're additionally paying more for external facing agents like Customer Agent. You're paying for credits and things like that. So it's just bananas. And then again, the underlying data infrastructure that's built in with HubSpot. This has been a huge pain point with Salesforce. Some of their partners even out there saying Agentforce is leaving a lot of their customers behind because a lot of Salesforce customers, their Salesforce instances are just a mess, and their customer data is really not in the shape that it needs to be to really leverage AI and get the value out of it. So yeah, that's what I'd say about AI. I could go on forever, but I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, we talked about adoption a little bit earlier, but let's talk about adoption specifically to AI because, everyone's learning how to use AI and want to understand, what essentially makes HubSpot easier for teams to use it on a day-to-day basis. And do you want to tackle this one since you just did a great overview of all of the AI features within HubSpot?
Yeah. So real world AI impact. I think ultimately, what's going to cause you to have impact is ease of use and custom built for specific use cases. I think ChatGPT and a lot of these AI features are really great, but the problem when you're trying to use them in the business, like I can even say this from personal experience, like we have ChatGPT enterprise licenses at HubSpot, we have Claude and Gemini and things like that, but they don't deliver as much value as some of these pre-built tools because they're not really designed for specific use cases and they're not connected to your enterprise data. And then I would also say too that like maybe you want to be wary about connecting those tools to your enterprise data because it's your customer data. That's, you want to treat it with respect and security and all those things in mind. And so I think that's kind of the value of HubSpot is like we're really clear on AI trust and safety. We're really protecting your customer data and we're really designing our AI use cases. Number one, to be easy to use. So you're not trying to figure out how to set up agents and pull action libraries together and set up your MCP servers and build multi-step automations for your AI agents. All of it's pre-built for you. And then the other thing is that a lot of it's built in for specific use cases inside of HubSpot. So we're really thinking about what are those core jobs to be done for marketing, sales, and service that we can help you automate or scale with AI. And I think that's kind of the downside or the benefit of a lot of these, custom DIY AI tools like Salesforce Agentforce, for example, is really powerful. You can build your own agents and things like that. But a lot of it is like, who's going to go in there and figure out what all the use cases are and build all those things for your team? A lot of that's already built out with HubSpot. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about what happens after you make the switch. So that post switch reality. What we've seen is, faster execution, cleaner data, sales and marketing alignment, just to name a few. Sarah, anything else that you have seen just from what happens after someone does make that move?
Yes. So the thing that I've noticed, and one of my favorite parts, is when we see a new marketer get into HubSpot. And for example, maybe they're using the AI that Ben mentioned. I used to do marketing events almost a decade ago. And I remember when I'd put on an event and everything, it felt like every year was from scratch. And then when I wanted to reflect on the previous year, I would dig through CRM data to try and figure out the effectiveness of that previous campaign. What I notice when folks start using HubSpot on, say, Marketing Hub is all of a sudden I get these light bulb moments where I'll have a marketer reach out that's recently purchased and they'll say, my gosh, all I did was say, which campaign was more effective last year out of these within my HubSpot? And I now know the answer. Or I'm able to build reports and dashboards myself without the help of an admin or IT for the first time in my career. That was me. I was your worst nightmare. I was putting in a ticket for everything, every report, every dashboard. And then I got to HubSpot and I was like, I am a technical genius. I can put together dashboards and reports instantly. So it's this enthusiasm. I always had this fear of selling something and then having a customer come back and be like, you sold me something that wasn't valuable. And at HubSpot, whenever I talk to a customer, I'm consistently shocked because it just seems to work. And that's consistent. It's not this crazy heavy lift. It just, when folks come in, they start to see value right away rather than years and years of value building up. I mean, you could summarize a closed lost opportunity by asking AI why that opportunity lost. And you quickly spin up a dashboard that reflects data on all of your marketing campaigns and elements in minutes. Yeah, it's just, I think, the good vibes that spread around as soon as somebody jumps in.
Yeah, that's great. So let's wrap up. So really, it sounds like the perspective is you really do need to analyze everything you're doing and choose the right platform for your business based on, the different features are included, your processes, adoption, all of these things we discussed today. And Ben, Sarah, any other, final thoughts before we get into some Q&A here soon?
I mean, I would just say remove the label and just look at the actual products underneath. I think that that's going to be key. Get your team involved because they're going to be way more vocal than you expected. And when you look at pricing, don't forget to look at the total cost of ownership because that and how long it's going to take you to get into that new tool. If somebody offers you a year free upfront, maybe ask why. Maybe is it because it's going to take an entire year to start using it? So just dig under the hood and don't just take kind of those answers at face value. That's my biggest takeaway for any prospective buyer.
Yeah, I know. I don't have like a big takeaway. I think, test the product, ask for demos, figure out what's in your licenses and what's in your contract. I think Salesforce loves to demo the art of the possible, but then often when you get down to the contract level, it's like what's actually included in here. And then again, I think kind of the takeaway is HubSpot is really value forward. So we put so much into our plans and packages. I think that's often kind of what people miss when comparing us side by side who don't know enough about. The difference is HubSpot, just kind of in general in the market, tends to include a lot more value in our plans than a lot of our competitors.
Yeah. Great takeaways. Okay, so before we get into these questions, SmartBug wants to offer you a few tools and freebies. So please take advantage of our offer for a free migration consultant with one of our team members so you can get specific insights. Also, you can take a minute to evaluate the ROI of switching to HubSpot by using our HubSpot TCO calculator. So there's a link for that as well that we'll be sending. And then if you need more information, we also have a webinar coming up, which is essentially the CRM showdown between HubSpot and Salesforce, since so many people use Salesforce, as we've even seen in the chat today, for their CRM. And then, essentially, keep an eye on your inbox for a case study as well for one of the companies that we worked with and helped them migrate from Salesforce to HubSpot. Okay. Thank you, Nikki, for providing those links in the chat for us as well today. Okay. Now, Q&A. We have a few minutes remaining and we want to be able to answer those questions for you. So one of the first ones that we saw from Benjamin is, how do you get buy-in from the CMO to move everyone into HubSpot? We're sorry you're living that Salesforce HubSpot integration nightmare. Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, do you want to take this one? Sarah, I feel like you've had more, client-facing, maybe actual experience there.
Yes, this is a pretty common one that we hear. Folks who come over and they desperately want to come over to HubSpot. And what we notice in the C-suite, those are typically, it's the folks who aren't actually, again, we love a C-suite executive, no shade, but they're often the folks who aren't actively building in the platform. They're the folks who aren't actively using the platform that often make the decision based on brand name, which is why so many folks go with Salesforce. And again, not a bad thing. It's an incredible platform. But then sometimes they miss key things that are really critical to enabling their team and making them more successful. And so as you're talking to your CMO, first of all, send them my way. Would love to have a conversation, mainly because there's just core differences. It's less this one's better and this one's worse. It's more just what are the strengths and weaknesses of each and identifying which is more important to you and your business. If you talk to your CMO, maybe you say, hey, did you know that support is free in HubSpot and it's paid in Salesforce? Did you know that there's no such thing as view-only seats in Salesforce, but you have unlimited free view-only users, so we wouldn't have to buy you a license, spend an extra $1,800 a year on you and the entire C-suite. There's no add-ons. This one SKU encompasses everything, and it's going to allow for vendor consolidation between these four tools. And then finally, again, bringing back to like the customer success manager. Most of the time, the CMO is overseeing all of these things, and they're a big part of that original purchase. But nobody's sitting down with them saying, hey, you spent money with us. Now let's get the most out of that investment. And that, I think, if you can even speak to just the hand holding that we provide from a CSM standpoint without an additional cost, your CMOs are going to be thrilled.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are really good points. Essentially, hopefully, you can get that buy-in along the way. Okay, so we have time for one more question. So the question is, can you clarify if it's true that Sales Hub is part of the Sales CRM license and that there's no extra cost for Gong Calendly equivalent features?
Yeah, I can take that one. I was answering Kate, I think this was you in the questions. So HubSpot, if you buy one of our core seat licenses like Sales Hub, Service Hub, or Marketing Hub, you're going to get our CRM built in and included. This is actually one of the kind of advantages of HubSpot versus Salesforce. Salesforce Sales Cloud is kind of their CRM. And then a lot of the sales engagement tools like the sales outreach, the calling, the digital messaging, all those things are going to be additional add-ons. Those are going to be included in our Sales Hub package. So the Sales Hub is going to be the CRM plus all of the sales engagement tools like the Calendly and the Gong. I think our standalone CRM, if you just want to buy the CRM, you can now do that. That's something we just added post inbound. It's called Smart CRM Core Seat. You can get some limited versions of like the Calendly and call recording and things like that, but the more full robust, all the sales engagement features plus the CRM, that's Sales Hub. And that's what I was going to say too about like getting buy-in from the CMO too, is you can actually use HubSpot Sales Hub in conjunction with Salesforce Sales Cloud. I think a lot of people think about using Marketing Hub with Salesforce, but you can also use Sales Hub with Salesforce, and it can add additional features and benefits. You can use it alongside, test a couple licenses and get some people in there to see, what kind of efficiency does it have for your business? Do your reps like using it? You can do things like email sequences, enroll people in contact sequences from Salesforce with HubSpot, or access our Copilot, which is now Breeze Assistant. You can get our AI anywhere on the web. You can use it inside of Salesforce on the web-based version, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, so think of it as HubSpot can either plug into your CRM or we can serve as your CRM. So say you are purchasing like that calendar functionality with, a Chili Piper or Calendly tool, or you're using an outreach or a sales loft or a high velocity sales. All of that is included in one Sales Hub seat, and it's also inclusive of the CRM. So that's all in one. So again, you could use HubSpot as the CRM, or you could just use HubSpot to plug into the CRM to give your team that sales engagement functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, really great points that there's different paths. There's not, one set way to set everything up. Okay. Well, that being said, we are out of time for questions, but we really want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope that you got a lot of great information. And like I said, check out your inbox for additional follow-ups from SmartBug. But again, thank you to Ben and Sarah today. We really appreciate all your insight. It was great to have you. And we hope everyone has a great day today.
Thanks, you guys too.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.